Your Holiness, I know you don't like to dwell on the past because the past is past, but could you tell us how you began thinking when you arrived in India in 1959, knowing you had to reconstruct your culture? What were your priorities and what were your inspirations, or what precedents did you look to as you began to?
To do it? No. Yes, I think in 1956, then not as a refugee, but I think quite high sort of food, quite high sort of position in the government of People's Republic of China. So came to India as a guest of Indian government. So during that period, I met, of course, Indian leaders, and then many Gandhians, freedom fighters. So then actually, at that time, there is opportunity to remain in India, and a lot of talks also took place. But finally, mainly, Pandit Nehru's sort of advice, and I returned, beginning of 57. So when 59 crisis is happened, although I did my best effort, to cool down the situation, but failed. Then, when we reach Indian border, firstly, the people who received me at the border, some of my old friends, one Indian official who was posted in Lhasa, and also some other officials I already know, 1956. So therefore, when I reach border, I feel something like reunion. That's one, I think, consolation way. Consolation. Then the immediate task is look after the refugee. After me, several thousand follow. But then our main task is for preservation of Tibetan culture, and the way to preserve our culture with modern education. So we emphasize at most important of modern education. So within 1 year, we established first Tibetan school in Mussoorie. And then also settlement. From that time, our slogan is hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So at that time, we talk sometimes hoping, within 1 or 2 years, we may return or find some solution. But now, 50 years already take. Now still don't know how long. But we prepared for that. So we take the project, resettlement project in India. That also not necessarily just to northern India, but we, for long run, for long term, the more open space. So that eventually we found South India, mainly in Karnataka state. So now look back, last 50 years, I think preservation of cultural heritage, I think we quite well success. Now today, such a stage, the many Tibetan monks, nuns, and also the ordinary student, looking go to India and join some of these institutions. So at least several thousand now getting spiritual Buddhist education, Buddhist philosophy, these things, and also modern education like that. So we feel quite proud. Then also modern education field, I think today, I think the standard of modern education inside Tibet, I think our position is better than inside. So last 50 years, I always say, homeless person, but found new happy home. Indian people, Indian government, and concerned sort of officials, and also I think basically many NGOs, even many government, help. So with that, Tibetan refugee community become, I think, one of the most successful refugee community. I think you have to judge. Perhaps I think Tibetan, I think quite good, I think quite successful. So.
Well, indeed, President Robinson, you've worked with so many exile communities everywhere. What do you see as the common problems and also the common possibilities that they all share?
Well, first of all, Your Holiness, it's a great honor to have this opportunity to speak in public with you. And I was thinking as you spoke, 50 years of exile and the pain of that all the same. In Ireland, we profoundly understand exile because we had patterns of emigration over decades, over centuries. And I was always struck by how important it was to the Irish who left the island to preserve their culture along the lines that you're talking about. And when I was elected President of Ireland, I said, and I underestimated what I was going to do. I said I would put a light in the window of my official residence for all of those who'd had to emigrate from Ireland. And that light took on a life of its own. I had actually meant a candle, but the security people said, no candle. So we got a lamp made and we put it in the window. But what I'm saying is that connection that people want, and what you've done is you've enabled those who are exiled to continue to value and to treasure and to pass on to their children their culture and their heritage. And that's vital. But at the same time, I have been in your beautiful country once in 1998, and I immediately sensed the spirituality, the completely different atmosphere from other parts of China. And that must be very difficult, and I think there's no easy way about it. I also believe that we're beginning to understand the importance of using modern communications to make the connections if people have to leave their country. And African countries are now linking with their diasporas. India is doing the same. Indeed, China is linking with a wider diaspora. And I think this is good because Irish culture benefited greatly from what the Irish family around the world had been doing, and then when they started to come back to Ireland, when it was easier to come back and when Ireland became more prosperous, there was an enrichment. So I think that it does lead to enrichment, and yet nonetheless, exile is loss. Exile is distance from home and from the context you want to be in. And it's really very important that you have created a context in India that enables the best possible substitute, but it is a substitute for living in your own country and in your own context. Your Holiness, when you were talking about those 50 years and hope but plan for the worst, can I ask you, thinking back now, if you knew then in 1959 that 50 years would pass and you would still be out of the country, is there anything you think you would have done differently?
Oh, I don't think. As I mentioned earlier, we planned our struggle, I think the preparation for worst, they even take generations. You see, we must sort of plan accordingly. So at that time, you see, among our own people, some of them, you see, now actually my elder brother here, so you see, sort of his sort of the view, the Tibetan should settle in northern India. The South India too far, that kind of feeling. But then the majority of our people, our sort of concerned people sort of view, as I mentioned earlier, more open space, and where you see we can extend, and also as a colony. So that means including marriage, yeah, then better. So instead of just scattered, spread out, like that. So I think we prepare for the worst. I think now become, I think, quite successful. But at that time, I don't know.
So it's wonders whether there is anything specific he would have done differently if he had known that it would take so long.
Actually, now last more than 60 years since I carry the responsibility. Then when I look back, all major decisions in the last 60 years, it seems become correct. Oh, small things, of course, always happen. When I entered this hall, I thought maybe warmer. So at that time, you see, I felt, oh, now the thicker, because of the shawl, may change. But then I thought, oh, if it's cool, or if warm, then I can. Not like your sort of dress. The monks' one advantage is you can easily take off. If you feel too cold yesterday, morning teaching, you see quite cold, so remain like that. So now if you see warm enough, then I can take out easily. So I kept this thicker one, so that's correct. One day in Delhi, so one talk, summer, I thought naturally it's warm, so very thin clothes. In the actual hotel, oh, air conditioned, very cold, very cold. I almost shivering. Oh, such mistake here and there always happen.
I was in. Just as you and I were talking backstage, you were saying that you had some unexpected and interesting moments when you went to Tibet in 1998. I'm interested to hear about them myself because I don't know those.
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to tell Your Holiness how difficult it was when I was invited by China to visit China during the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1998. And they wanted me to come, and I wanted to go. But I also said, if I go, I want to go to Tibet. No. And I said, yes. And we had a lot of discussion. And quite near the time, I was going to go in September, and we were beginning to plan, but I was still insisting that I wanted to go also to Tibet. And the then Chinese ambassador came to see me in my office in Geneva, And he started to explain, about the visit. And I said, but I want to also go to Tibet, so I'm not agreeing yet, because you haven't given me the green light. And he said, completely out of the context, he said, when you come to Shanghai, you will see a sign in one of the parks. We kept that sign, and it says, no dogs or Chinese allowed. And I looked at him, and I said, as an Irish person, I understand that. There were many signs, no Irish, no Catholics. And he looked at me, and he said, will you send me a history of your people? And there are many histories of my people, so I was very happy. I sent him several books. And 2 weeks later, I got permission to travel to Tibet. And I think it was because I had a background that was not colonial. It was the opposite. And somehow that was enough trust that I could go to Tibet. It was an extraordinarily special visit for me. It was not long enough, but one thing I did that I recall vividly, we went to a school in Lhasa, and I had little copies of the Universal Declaration in your language, in the Tibetan language. And we spoke to teachers, and we handed them these, and they had never heard of the Universal Declaration. And I was very happy to be giving these so that they could use them. And then one of my human rights officers who was with me whispered to me that this was probably against Chinese law. But I was the High Commissioner, so I said, I don't mind. But we had a very, very interesting conversation, because they had no idea how to use this. They said, but how do we teach this? And I said, you don't teach so much as talk about it. Just talk about it with the students and see what they think. And that will be a good conversation. And I was back in China as High Commissioner on a number of other occasions, but I never was able to get back to Tibet. But it was always an issue that I raised. There were always human rights issues that I was being given by Amnesty and Human Rights Watch and China Watch. They would give me the human rights situation over the... And it's very unacceptable that the human rights situation in Tibet has been continuing and has not been addressed and not effectively addressed, either from the outside or even more so from within. It's kind of heartbreaking from a human rights point of view.
And it's been getting a
so
lot...
now I feel happy. Now here also one spiritist. Anything nowadays, you say anything.
I know.
You speak truthful, honestly, which not go well with official line. Then they simply say spiritist. So seems you also some activities of spiritist.
In my visits to China as UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, I found it quite difficult to keep the balance, because China signed a memorandum with me and my officials to engage in workshops on human rights issues. They also signed the 2 covenants on international human rights, and they ratified the covenant on economic, social, and cultural rights, not the covenant on civil and political rights. But I never got satisfaction on the actual human rights problem issues, whether it was to do with Falun Gong, whether it was to do with Tibet, whether it was to do with labor dissidents. And so at the end of my visit, I would have a press conference, and I was very straight. I'm a very direct person. I say it as it is. So I gave credit to China for the workshops on addressing the problem of re-education through labor, no due process, police and human rights, courts reform, etc. And I criticized the lack of movement on Tibet. There were Tibetan nuns that were jailed at one stage that I was complaining about, and I raised it in detail and got no satisfaction. And then the international media, particularly the US media, would say, High Commissioner slams China. High Commissioner criticizes China. And the Chinese media would say, High Commissioner praises China. So it was difficult.
Your Holiness, as you know, many of us in this country have lost our homes, we've lost our jobs because of the recent economic collapse. And people always look to you. You've seen so much difficulty and challenge and loss in your life, and you remain so confident. How did the rest of us begin to find confidence when our lives are unraveling sometimes around us?
Yes, it is quite serious and very sad. But one thing, you see, I feel those people who just, you see, they think about money, their whole sort of interest only money. So maybe even in dream, just money like that. No? So there's such people. I think their whole hope relying on money. So when this global economic crisis happened, I think much more disturbances to such people. Then another kind of people, yes, money is very important. Without money, you can't survive, you can't work. However, the other values, the very sort of pleasant, the family, full of love, compassion, or with compassionate companion, or neighbors, or community, perhaps. I think such people, although one side, they also passing through same experience. They reduce expenses on these things, and sometimes jobless like that. But still, as a person, still I think much happier, because the other values. So in that, from that viewpoint, sometimes I feel the little difficulties regarding material, I think good to remind there is limitation. Therefore, also total hope, or total expectation, just relying on money or matter, and you get, sooner or later, you get some problem. And many years ago, one time in my visit to Japan, I expressed, at that time, the Japanese economy is very smoothly, very rapidly increasing. At that time, I expressed, so this sort of growth may not be always like that. So anyway, there is limitation. So once you reach a certain level, then no longer much sort of development. And if you too much expectation, or you take for granted this kind of situation, then you will face a lot of problem. So it is better to prepare in mind, there is limitation. So then afterward, after one occasion, then the Japanese economy, little sort of problems started. Then another occasion, my visit there, then some my friend, some economist, some I think the businessmen, then they appreciate about my sort of view. So like that. That I feel. Otherwise, I don't know. And perhaps, I think, now here, one thing I want to share with you is, the market-oriented economy. Sometimes people say the force of market force looks something beyond human power. But at the same time, the market force itself is human creation. So something human created, but at the same time beyond human control. So that's a little I said, puzzle re. So then one time, I think last year, I asked my Italian friend, who is a businessman, and also have some business work in China also. And I asked him, what is the cause? What is the reality? Then he mentioned the present, one causes of present sort of crisis. He mentioned too much greed. With that, speculation without sort of knowing certain, but just speculation. And not transparent. Hypocrisy. Lies also. He mentioned these are the sources of this problem. Then I thought, oh, now money matter, also related with truthful, honesty, transparent. So that related with moral ethics. If you carry economic work or business work, honestly, transparent, realistic, then this kind of things may not happen at big scale. So that I know, but otherwise I don't know. I think the audience maybe know much better. I don't know.